Hi, everyone. This is Congressman Steve Womack greeting you from Washington, D.C., and I want to welcome you to tonight's Teletown Hall event. We get an opportunity to do this on occasion, and I'm honored that you have marked this date and have put this time on your calendar so that people around my district can pick up the phone when it rang, and no matter how you joined our call, I'm glad you're here. And hopefully over the next hour, we're going to be able to answer some questions and bring some context to what's going on here in Washington. I host these telephone town halls to hear directly from you about issues that matter most in your community and in your daily life, and your input is invaluable to my work in Washington. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. We do this because we can reach a lot of people in a short space of time, and that certainly is better than just circulating through the district where you might be able to have an in-person town hall meeting and say, 50 or 75 people show up. On a night like tonight, we'll have potentially several thousand people that will join us, and it gives us an opportunity to reach a wider audience and cover a lot of material for those people. If you're listening on your phone, you need to press *3 if you want to get into the queue to ask a question. That's *3 on your phone. To sign up for my e-newsletter, which we send out every Friday afternoon, I want you to press *6 if you want to sign up for the newsletter. A lot of you perhaps are already signed up for it, but it's a pretty good depiction of what we've done in a given week when we're in Washington, and my staff does a very good job of providing this information to you at the end of each week, complete with pictures. We have a lot of people that come up, and when I'm circulating through my district, we get an opportunity to be with a lot of folks, and so sign up for that e-newsletter if you want to at *6. For those joining us online, you can submit your question through the prompt on your screen. Feel free to do that, and hopefully we can get to as many calls as we can. Before I open it up for questions, I do want to provide just a quick update for what's going on in Washington. In January and February, Congress did what many folks thought was impossible. We finished 11 of the 12 appropriation bills. Would have done all 12, but we ran into a little bit of a problem in Minnesota with regard to the funding of the Department of Homeland Security. But we did get 11 of the 12 bills passed, including a bill that I wrote with the Transportation and Housing and Urban Development side of things. And I'll come back to that perhaps here a little bit later on in the event, because the money that was set aside in the THUD bill, that the one that I write, does involve a lot of money coming back to the 3rd District of Arkansas for some very much needed projects in our state and certainly in my district. And of course, one of the more impactful provisions of what I call the THUD bill prioritizes aviation safety. It puts $22 billion plus into the FAA. Those dollars will enable the hiring of 2,500 new air traffic controllers, will accelerate a much-needed modernization of our outdated facilities and equipment. And for you, the traveling public, that means safer and more efficient air travel. Who can argue against that? And particularly, it was just over a year ago that we had a tragic disaster here over the Potomac at the DCA airport involving an Army helicopter and an Embraer jet that took 67 innocent lives. So we're going to do everything we can in my bill to improve aviation safety by plussing up some of those accounts in the FAA. For ground transportation, the bill put $200 million in addressing a nationwide shortage of safe and available truck parking. For those of you that drive it, particularly at night, you'll notice that the on and off ramps on most of our interstates and anywhere else, Walmart parking lots and the like, you just have all kinds of semi-trailers and trucks that are parked there during their rest periods, and we want to create a much safer option for truckers, and so we've put $200 million in those accounts to start some truck parking opportunities around the country. We preserve housing assistance for the most vulnerable, promoting housing affordability through flexible, locally driven programs that allow communities to expand our housing supply without federal micromanagement. Housing is a huge issue right now, not just in the 3rd District, but across the country. Housing affordability is pretty important, and a lot of people, a lot of folks rely on housing assistance through their federal government, and my bill preserves a lot of that assistance. And last and certainly not least, in the bill, we had nearly $100 million worth of community projects that are coming back for 11 3rd District projects to improve transportation infrastructure in my district. Notably, $59 million that's going to help move the new 612 project, that's that Springdale bypass, from I-49. You know, we've already got the work finished between I-49 back toward Cave Springs, and then we've got another segment that's soon to be dedicated between Cave Springs around to Tontitown. But going east, there's nothing yet. So $59 million to move the project from 49 around to 265, and then RDOT is working the plans right now to move the project from 265 down to Sonora. And pretty soon it will be possible for these 18-wheelers coming out of Oklahoma or going toward Oklahoma to go right around the north side of Springdale and to not complicate matters through the main drag there on Sunset in Springdale. So we've got a lot of stuff in there that's important for my district. Now, before I continue, I want to remind listeners on the phone to press star 3 if you want to get in the queue to ask a question. Sign up for the e-newsletter by pressing star 6. For those joining online, you can submit your question through the prompt on the screen. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to ask a polling question. It will have to do with the Operation Epic Fury. And so sometime here in the next 30 minutes or so, we'll do our poll question and give you an opportunity to weigh in on that question, and I certainly want to hear what your opinions are. Looking ahead, we do need to finish the FY26 appropriation cycle by doing the DHS bill. We'll have that on the floor tomorrow, and I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's possible that there will be some Democrats that will join us that recognize that we're hurting ourselves when we shut down an important part of the government like what we're doing with DHS right now. I think they've made their point. But the part about Department of Homeland Security that has caused this little friction between Republicans and Democrats, that being the cases up in Minnesota, were about ICE and CBP. And in the big, beautiful bill, we put extra money in there for ICE and CBP, so they're not even being affected. But for people like TSA at the airport or FEMA or, you know, the Coast Guard, some of these other very important projects that get funding through the Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill, you know, they're the ones that are being impacted right now. That's where the real hardship is. So I'm hoping that tomorrow we can get DHS funding done for FY26, and then we'll have a clean slate as we move into fiscal year 27. So that's about where we are right now. I'm sure you're going to have some questions about Operation Epic Fury. There might be some questions about immigration, could be questions about, deficit and debt, budget process, whatever's on your mind. We certainly want to hear from you tonight. Once again, star 3 to get in the queue to ask a question, star 6 if you want to sign up for my e-newsletter. All right, so with all that said, let's hear from you. Our first caller is Bobby in Farmington. Bobby, are you there? Are you there, Bobby?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, good to hear from you.
Good to talk to you.
What's on your mind, Bobby?
What's that?
What's on your mind tonight?
I'd like to know who owns the national debt and when are they going to start paying it off?
Oh, boy. Let's see. I could go all night on that question. Let me be as brief as I can. So who owns our debt? Well, we own a lot of it. The U.S. government owns a lot of it through our treasuries that take up excess funding out of, say, Social Security, those kinds of programs. And then foreign countries that buy our debt and other institutions. So there are a ton of people that I would label as our creditors. The second part of your question was about when are we going to start paying it down? Well, here's the problem with paying down the national debt, and that is the first thing you got to do is you got to stop the bleeding. You've got to do something about what we call the deficit, and that's different than the debt. The deficit is the amount of money short that we are in a given fiscal year to meet all of our expenses. We'll take in so much revenue, we will spend more than our revenue in commitments that we've made as a country. Some of those are mandatory commitments like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and paying our creditors. And then some of it is what we call discretionary obligations. These are programs that are subject to the annual appropriations process of Congress that I just went through a minute ago. Right now, we're going to, and these are round numbers, give or take. Right now, we're going to make about $5 trillion in income, and that comes from a variety of sources, mostly income taxes, corporate taxes, tariffs, and the like. We're going to collect about $5 trillion, but we're going to spend about $7 trillion. But of that $7 trillion, only about $1.6 trillion of it is what is in those discretionary programs. So I think you can see right there the challenge that we have in answering your ultimate question, and that is, how do we pay down our debt? How do we become debt-free? And it's all going to begin with us dealing with the annual budget process and trying to figure out how do we balance the books. The $40 trillion of debt is still going to be there, but in order to get to it, we got to first solve for the deficit. And the deficit right now is going to approach about $2 trillion this year. So if we wiped out everything that we do in appropriations, we'd still have the better part of a $500 billion deficit. So fixing the deficit is job one, and in order to do that, you're going to have to examine the options that you have available to you to deal with the big spenders, and that's Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and now the net interest on the debt. I don't want you to walk away from this program tonight thinking that I'm advocating for us cutting those programs. There's been a commitment made by the President that we're not going to reduce the benefits that we promised to the American people. But in order for us to be able to get ultimately to what you want to see happen, and that's a balanced budget and start whittling away at this debt, then we're going to have to do something on the mandatory programs. We're going to have to reshape some of them. We're probably going to have to introduce revenues to the mix. There are going to have to be growth. We're going to have policies that promote growth in our economy and try to grow part of our way out of this. So it's a very complicated mess, and the reason it hasn't been done to date is because it is a very politically volatile issue. How do you address the deficit and the debt without hurting the American public? So those are among the challenges facing not just this Congress, but future Congresses as well. But I do appreciate the call, Bobby. Thank you so much from Farmington. All right, Randy in Springdale, I think, is next in line. Randy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Do you support President Trump's actions against Iran?
Yeah, and it's going to be the subject of a poll question that we're going to do tonight. So the question is about Operation Epic Fury. And I think unless you've been under a rock, you know that in late February, the U.S. and Israel launched a coordinated attack on Iran. I won't go into too much detail right now. I have not been privy, admittedly, not been privy to the classified brief as yet. I hope to have one tomorrow afternoon about it. But this is what I would tell you and everybody tuned in tonight on this program about what we're doing in Iran. You can go all the way back to 1979 when the first Ayatollah assumed power following the Iranian Revolution. This regime has been consistently one of the worst purveyors of terror around the globe. And they have consistently called for the death of America. They've worked relentlessly to undermine, interfere, and inflict terror on the United States and our friends and allies, specifically Israel. 1983, the Beirut truck bombing killed 220 American Marines. Global war on terror that killed around 600 American troops through proxy forces. And then back in October of 23, killed 48 Americans. The reason that we are in the situation we're in right now, and the reason President Trump has taken very decisive action, is that past administrations have tried to appease Iran. How many of you remember the misguided Iran nuclear deal that enabled the regime to continue discreet development of a nuclear weapon? And we turned billions back to that country that were used to prosecute a lot of their nefarious activity around the globe. Well, President Trump has returned us to peace through strength. In June of 25, he ordered strikes against Iranian nuclear infrastructure in the Operation Midnight Hammer, and did a lot of damage to Iran's underground uranium enrichment program and nuclear technology, and then entered into some negotiations with the country in hopes that they would come to terms with what our requirements are, but that just simply hasn't happened. And so he took decisive action. This activity has sadly cost us, I think, 6 American lives, as we know to date. Several others have been injured from strikes by Iran in response to our into what we've done. And I'm not sure how long this is going to go. But we have sent a message to Iran, we've sent a message to Hezbollah, we've sent a message to terror groups around the globe that America is back, and we're going to hold people accountable for the wrongdoing that they've created on our country and on our friends and partners. So we'll do a poll question here probably in another 10 minutes or so, and I want you to hang around for that so that you can weigh in on it, and then we'll take that poll question and look at the results of it. And we'll announce those results before we're finished here tonight. Let's go back to Springdale. Ray, are you there?
Yes, sir. Congressman, thank you for the $59 million for Springdale bypass.
I'm just, you know what makes me sick about it, Ray, is we should have done it a year. We had it teed up a year ago, and then, as you know, we failed to get our FY25 appropriation bills done. We ended up with a continuing resolution, and that just killed everything for a year. And then, of course, we went right back to the well and said, hey, these projects are still important, so let's put them back in there for FY26. So it's a year late, but better late than never, I guess.
Any idea when they're going to start construction on that project?
I'm not an expert on where the project stands right now. I did talk to Jared Wiley the other day, the director of RDOT, and I think right now they are in the process, and I could be wrong on this, but I think they're in any big project like this is going to begin with one, design, satisfying all the design pieces of it and the location, then going out and purchasing the right-of-way where this infrastructure is going to go, and then if there are utility provisions in there, i.e. power lines, sewer lines, and the like that need to be moved, that would all be part of it. So it's still going to be a while before you see, shall we say, the turning of dirt and the preparation of the road beds and that sort of thing. But it's important that we get this project launched sooner than later, because very soon you will be able to come out of Oklahoma, and when you get to Taneytown in a big rig, you'll be able to go around part of well, you'll be able to go around Town and part of Springdale, but you're going to come out at a T intersection with I-49, and then you're either going to have to go on south and then back to the east, or but what we want to do is accelerate the time frame by a few years as to how long it's going to take us to be able to continue that traffic on past 49, around to 265, then on to Sonora, and then on out to the other side of the state. It's important that there be a funding source for that, because RDOT is limited in its resources. They have the 1 cent sales tax that we imposed on ourselves a few years ago that helps. There's other monies in transportation packages that help us, but this $59 million is going to go a long way for that piece between I-49 and Highway 265, and it's a great honor for me to stand up and argue for those projects, and we were successful in this one, albeit a year late. But thank you for the call. It's good to hear from you. Let's see. David in Lowell, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'd like to know what the status is on getting the SAVE Act passed. Well,
we're good in the House. It's going to have to, the Senate, this is a political football right now, and the possession is with the Senate. I have supported the SAVE Act in both of its various forms. We had an initial form, I don't know, Grace, when we do original SAVE Act, when was that? And then the Save America Act that we just voted on. So I've been in support of it both times. And frankly, for those listening tonight that really not real sure what we're talking about, this is a bill designed to secure America's elections. And I don't think there's, I scratch my head wondering why are people opposed to this? I mean, all it does is it requires you to have a proof that you're a U.S. citizen, one, and two, when you show up to vote, that you have an ID that matches who you say you are. And I don't think it's voter suppression at all, although that's a claim by some people. I just think it's common sense legislation. And we've passed several versions of the SAVE Act, like back in April of 25 was the first version of it. And then February of this year, we passed it again in the House, but it's over in the Senate. And as you know or may not know, over in the Senate, the rules are just a little bit different in that in order to be able to get something ahead to an up or down vote in the Senate, you've got to be able to satisfy the filibuster rules in the Senate. Now, we don't have that problem in the House. It's just a simple majority on all things in the House. But in the Senate, you got to be able to get 60 votes in order to be able to end a filibuster, invoke cloture, as they call it. And then once you get 60 votes for that, then the next vote is an up or down vote on the bill itself, and that's a simple majority in the Senate. But you got to get past cloture, and if you don't have 60 votes, it just goes over there to die, quite unlike the rules in the House. So that's the problem we have over there. They've got to get 60 votes, which means if all 53 Republicans voted for the measure, you still got to have 7 Democrats to join you. And I think that's the challenge that the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune of South Dakota, has right now. But I do appreciate the call, and I hope that SAVE Act, we've got various versions or various options with the SAVE Act that we can bring it back with attached to some other bill that would be difficult for Democrats to vote against. I don't know. I'm just not there yet in terms of what our next strategy is to try to get this thing across the finish line. Remember, if you're listening on your phone, press *3 to get in the queue to ask a question. If you want to sign up for my e-newsletter, which comes out every Friday, I want you to press *6. Yeah, and for those joining us online, you can submit a question through the prompt on your screen. All right, are we ready for this poll question? All right. So here's our poll question tonight. I need your help. I want you to weigh in on this. And you're going to have an option to either press 1 for yes or 2 for no. Here's the question. Do you support President Trump's military operation against Iran? Do you support Operation Epic Fury? Press 1 for yes and 2 for no. And as you weigh in on that subject, let me take one more stab at it, because I get asked this question a lot. I got asked this question in the airport this week, and that is, when does Congress need to weigh in? And there's a couple of things that are on my mind about that particular question. One, 21st century warfare and the way it's prosecuted these days, and with all the terror cells that are lined up around the world, we need to have we need the president to be very nimble in his ability to be able to reach out and address bad guys. And so long-range strike is one of the tools in the tool belt right now that gives us an opportunity to send a message without committing American lives, boots on the ground, if you will. Now, he has talked about the potential need for boots on the grounds, but right now, the operation that we've taken involves mainly long-range strike capability. And we've done a lot of the battle damage assessment that has happened in these areas has been convincing to me that that is the best way to send an initial message to the supreme leader and others in Iran that their behavior is no longer going to be acceptable. And frankly, the other piece of it is we should be doing everything we can to help the president secure, because safety is the most important thing that we do for our country. It's in the Constitution, providing for the common defense. It's the single biggest mission of every mayor and every county judge and every governor, providing the safety and security for the people that they represent. And we've got to give this president the type of leverage and the ability to convince nefarious actors like Iran that possessing a nuclear weapon is just off the table. He sent the message. He has continuously informed this country that this is not going to be acceptable, and he's taking action accordingly. So, but I do want you to press *1 if you agree with the president's military operation. Press 2 if you do not agree. All right, let's go to Fayetteville. I'm told that Clinton is on the line from Fayetteville. Clinton, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. My question is regarding the Epstein situation. This is a situation kind of hits kind of close to home. Why aren't you being more vocal about getting full transparency, all names, regardless of who it is, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Pastafarian, for anybody? Just doesn't matter. If they're in those files and they did something, they need to face some justice. Why aren't you being more vocal about that?
Well, I think I've been pretty vocal about it. I don't know what more you want me to do. I have said, and I'll say it again tonight on this phone call, this teletown hall, that I find the activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to be among the most egregious and just heartbreaking situations a person could ever have. I mean, I've seen and talked to the victims of Epstein. I support full transparency. I believe that these files should be released to the public. I also understand that in the course of doing so, we need to do everything we can to protect the victims so that they don't become re-victimized by it. But I have no problems at all with a complete and thorough review and in complete sunshine on what's contained in those files. And frankly, if there are people that I might know that are implicated by these files, that's just an unfortunate outcome. But I don't know what more I can say other than the fact that I fully support the release of these files, and frankly, I think it's taking far too long for these files, to find their day. Now, there have been some members a little more vocal than me on the issue, but it's also because I have a few other commitments that I try to deal with when I'm in Washington. Noteworthy, I'm a subcommittee chairman on an appropriations committee, and that consumes a lot of my time and energy. I'm also a member of the Defense Subcommittee on Appropriations, and that consumes a lot of time and energy. So in and out of sessions, some classified, some not, but there are other members up there, colleagues of mine that have been very vocal and outspoken on the subject, and I am for complete and full transparency. Now, I did miss a vote on one of those votes. I can't remember which one it was, but as you probably remember, I was hardshipped by the fact that my wife got sick in October and passed away in January, and there was a period of time in there that, for 15 years, I never missed a vote up here. But there was a period of time in November, December, and early January where my presence at home was more important, and I was there to bring comfort and support for my wife during the time that she was sick. And so one of those votes on the Epstein files, I think I officially missed, but I can tell you straight up here on this program tonight that I would have supported that particular measure when it came before the House. But I don't know how much more outspoken I can be. I'm not going to stand on a street corner with a sandwich board on it, but at the end of the day, I think I speak for most of the people that I represent that a complete and full disclosure of what's in those files is absolutely necessary for this country. And we've got to get past this issue, for sure. All right, Derek in Fort Smith, let's talk I-49.
Congressman.
Hey.
Hey, my wife and I, of course, would like to give our deepest and most sincere sympathies to you and your family on the passing of your wife. I can't believe how difficult that must be. And also, secondly, we'd love to tell you that, unlike your last caller, we do support everything that you have done. We believe that you are a great congressman for this district and support everything you've done, and we'll continue to support you in the future. With all that being said, we were curious on to, we see the new building of the bridge here in Fort Smith and just need your thoughts and how you think those things are coming along there.
Yeah, well, I-49, Derek, as you know, is a critical connective infrastructure piece for all of the middle part of America. And, it took us years to work out the details up on the north side when we were dealing with Missouri and on-again, off-again negotiations and funding resources and that sort of thing. But we finally got all of that north piece done and then turned our attention back toward the south, and we were able to get, as you know, a piece of that interstate, for those that haven't driven down there, from Highway 22 down around Fort Smith, but we have this gap of about 12 or 13 miles between Barling and Alma, and of course that big bridge. And it was developing a good coherent plan on resourcing, because that's an expensive project, building a bridge over the Arkansas River. And we were able to help in that regard. And then we put, I think, $3 million. My office put $3 million in the last appropriation bill for the project going from the bridge up to one of the roads there along. There's a gun club up there, and maybe it's Gun Club Road. Anyway, that particular project. We've got $3 million. Senator Bozeman put a significant amount of money toward that project as well, but it's going to take a lot more for us to be able to close the gap between I-40 and Barling. So, but we're on our way. It will be much like what we dealt with the Bella Vista bypass. It's going to take us a while, but piecemealing this thing is about the only way you can do it, because you just don't have a funding source that allows you to do it all up front. And so RDOT has the plans. The bridge is under construction up to whatever that Gun Club Road, and then we'll keep the pressure on DOT to help us, and some of this will be done through the community project accounts, the old earmark program, and some of it will be done through formula funds, and we'll piecemeal our way back through this so that eventually you'll be able to get on 49 anywhere, up in Benton County, for example, and drive all the way straight through and not have to get on I-40, come right on down between, Alma and Barling and cross the river and head on down south of Fort Smith. And then, of course, people are going to start asking me, all right, when are we going to get it to Y-City? When are we going to get it on to Texarkana? And those are going to be very expensive projects that probably are going to happen long after I leave Congress. But anyway, right now we're concentrating on getting that last stretch of highway funded and under construction so that we can at least get on 49 and go all the way down around Fort Smith. I think it's a economic benefit to, say, places like Alma and others. This is going to change the character of those communities when we can bring that traffic through there and not have to put it on I-40 and move it down across the Fort Smith-Van Buren area. But it's important, and it's expensive, and we're going to continue to give it the highest priority that we possibly can. Now, having said that, I will tell you that there are other significant priorities from a transportation point of view. I mean, nobody in my district is going to argue about the need for us to continue to fund the Highway 112 project between Fayetteville and Bentonville. That's an alternate north-south access piece. And if you've ever gotten stuck in an accident or bumper-to-bumper traffic on I-49 at a key drive time, you know that alternative routes are critically important given the impact that the population growth in that area is having. So we still have work to do on 112. As we talked about earlier, the Highway 412 bypass going around Springdale is still going to need revenue. So all of these projects are of vital importance to my district, and I'm going to do everything I can to champion some resources to come that way. But I do appreciate your call. By the way, the estimated completion of that bridge is the Arkansas River Bridge is 2029. But I will tell you, the contractor, at the day we cut the ribbon and started the construction on the bridge, told me that he would not be surprised if it was moved up to 2028. I'm going to hold him to that, by the way. All right. Which one's my next one? Oh, Trent in Fayetteville. Let's go back to Fayetteville. Trent, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Thank you.
Going back to those recent developments we've been talking about all night, with housing and all that good stuff, how will that development increase local economic vitality and reduce the housing cost burden on individual renters within our community?
Well, in terms of what I said earlier about my bill regarding housing and urban development, that is a bill that is designed to bring assistance to people who are struggling and fit in certain economic categories. As far as housing in general goes, it is a very complicated problem, and there's a lot of input factors. Let's begin with the cost of land. They're not making any more of it, and Northwest Arkansas has been a magnet for people all around the country to move there because of the job creation, the beautiful scenic beauty, the economic opportunities that are presented there. So the cost of land has gone out of sight. So just buying property up there with which you could build a house or build a subdivision has gotten very expensive. And of course, on top of that, the construction costs alone have gone sky high. And then when you put on top of all of that higher interest rates and the cost of labor and the regulatory environment that a lot of these builders and developers operate in with all of the requirements from the municipalities, just makes the building of single-family affordable homes a real challenge for the region. And I'm not an expert on how you solve for that equation. Because on one hand, I'm a conservative, and I would like to limit the role of government in it, but at the same time, something's got to give. I believe that pro-growth policies that create jobs and economic opportunity, and that increase wages is probably the best thing we could be doing right now to help people experience homeownership. One of my real concerns right now as a person, not as a congressman, but as just a general person, is the fact that there are so many multifamily opportunities, the apartment buildings that are going up all around the region. And that's an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about land prices, because when the land gets so high, things begin to go vertical. And people cannot afford a basic mortgage on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, say, that used to sell for $150,000. It's now the better part of $500,000. The people that are looking for those kinds of properties cannot afford to live in them because of the mortgage on them. And so the opportunity for a lot of these people to be able to get into a starter home, to start building a little equity, and then upgrade later, a few years later, and build a little more equity, the development and the building of wealth in most parts of our country begins largely with the ability to invest in home ownership. And I know that's worked for me. It's worked for a lot of people that I know. But right now, about all people can afford is just a rental unit, even if they can afford that. And I think some of these apartment complexes that have gone up in the Rogers, Bentonville, Springdale, Fayetteville area, it's not uncommon for those rents for small places, single bedroom efficiency type apartments would be up around $1,500 to $2,000 a month, and a lot of people just can't afford that. So, and those were well within the ability to pay a mortgage back years ago, and in some cases it's worse than others. I mean, you go into the middle part of Bentonville, and it's just unaffordable for normal people, and so that's why you're seeing the spread and the sprawl of a lot of these areas out into the smaller communities, because the land prices are a little cheaper, although they're too getting very expensive. And there's a lot of subdivisions. I mean, look at what's happened in Centerton over the last 20 years. It's incredible. Pea Ridge, another example, and elsewhere. People are now moving out into those areas where they can find something a little bit more affordable. As far as government intervention on it, look, the way we're going to fix the housing crisis in our country is if interest rates will come down and people can start affording the mortgages that are going to begin the process of helping them develop a little household wealth. I would also be interested in your thoughts. If you've got ideas as to what we should be doing or could be doing to help people without just throwing a bunch of money at the problem, then I want to hear what those solutions are. French Hill just had a bill passed. He's the chairman of Financial Services, and just had a bill passed that dealt with some of our home ownership programs, the Housing for the 21st Century Act. We passed that in February. Allows for community development block grants that used to not be able to invest in those kinds of properties. Now they can. So, and it also allows for small dollar mortgages. So there are things that we can do, but we're just a victim right now of the area in which we live and the demand that's been created by the people that are moving into our area. Now, let me say this finally. There are a lot of people that have moved in here from, say, high-cost areas like California and New York. They've sold out in those areas, and they've brought cash money to Northwest Arkansas, and they're able to buy a lot of places for cash on the barrelhead, free of a mortgage. And but again, the demand that's being driven by a lot of these housing developments is putting a lot of pressure on the working people of Northwest Arkansas that make things happen on an everyday basis. But I'll continue to look for those solutions. And I appreciate the call, appreciate the input. What's our next? All right, for those listening on your phone, *3 to get in the queue. If you're online, you can submit a question through the prompt on your screen. All right, we've got Race from Van Buren. Are you there?
I'm here, Congressman Womack.
Thanks for calling.
Listen, I know there's a lot to get to, so you had already answered the question. I've already got my information, I wanted on the bridge and on 49. So that leads me to my thank you for you, Congressman Womack, because if it wasn't for you, and it's interesting because my wife and I are actually a product of a USDA home loan program, talking about housing and the struggle with it right now. And we've been with them for about 20 years ago. Our daughter began having seizures out of the blue, and she was diagnosed with epilepsy. She didn't have insurance, so my wife and I were paying for all of her medical bills out of pocket. That's selling your Harley, your boats, all of everything you've acquired just to keep up with this. And long story short, the rural development loan through the USDA saved us back then, and our daughter is married, has a family. We were able to get her all the help she needed. And then last year I was diagnosed with 2 chronic illnesses and was off of work, and we got behind on our home loan payments. With Doge, Congressman Womack, there was a lot of non-essential personnel let go, which put a lot of strain on essential government personnel, which caused us to slip through the cracks with assistance. And I made a phone call to you in a last-ditch effort, and within 20 minutes, you called me back from your truck and took my information down, got your team on it. Long story short, you guys made things happen. You got us back in the pipeline, got our case looked at, and we were granted a moratorium and some assistance, and we were allowed to stay in our house after 20 years, and everything is taken care of, and it was all because of you and you taking care of your constituents. I want these people to know you're on the other end of that line, and my wife and I have the opportunity to truly thank you here, and I appreciate it.
Well, Race, I'll tell you what, it just makes my heart sing. It really does to hear your story. And I'm just going to say this, I'm blessed. People evaluate the work of their congressman a lot of different ways, mainly through high-profile stuff like voting and all that kind of stuff. But what's often overlooked, and I have John Paul Hammerschmidt to thank for this idea. He had the best constituent service program of a congressman that I knew. He'd been doing it 26 years, so he had a lot of experience at it. But he told me when I got elected that, after the election's over, they're no longer Republicans and Democrats, they're your constituents. And he said, what you've got to do is figure out a way to serve all of them, even those that, may not have supported you. And that's been the mission of my constituent service team back in Arkansas. And I've got some people that have been with me the entire almost 16 years I've been doing this. Janet Foster, who came with me from the city of Rogers. She was my executive assistant there. And then Chris Bader down in the Fort Smith, Van Buren area, who's been with me since day one. Kyle Weaver, another one up in my Rogers office. But the point I'm making is every one of those people come to work every day there to help the people that come from our district navigate the maze of difficulty in dealing with the federal government. Whether it's a rural development loan or something with Social Security over at the VA, it doesn't make any difference. And you know what? We don't ask them if they're Republican or Democrat or if they like us or don't like us. Our job is to help them navigate sometimes a very difficult, hard-shipping sort of casework. And I pride myself on having a team of experts that do that and do it well. And the great thing is they've done it so long now that they've got people in their Rolodex that can get them beyond the front door and quickly, where they need to be. And that's what we pride ourselves on. It warms our heart. And every day my team meets at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and they talk about how many cases they have pending, how many they solved, how many are new, and it's incredible the work that team does back in my Northwest Arkansas office. And then up here, I'm blessed that I've got a staff full of great experts on policy. So whether it's healthcare or national defense strategy or no matter what it is, I've got a team up here of about 9 people that work every day to ensure that we have the most informed decision-making process we have that we could have going into a vote schedule. So I'm blessed on both ends, and I've hand-selected these people, and they make me a lot better than what I am. But I also believe strongly in my leadership principles that a good leader will surround himself with a whole lot of people, a lot smarter than him, that can go out and execute the program of work with very limited capability. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. One of the secret sauces of my leadership philosophy is that, and my staff here will tell you, these young people will tell you, I want you to hear this, I underwrite errors of enthusiasm. That's part of my leadership philosophy, that I want these young people up here with great ideas I want to give them the flexibility and the freedom to go out and do things that they feel like can be more efficient and better serve the people that we represent. And on occasion, they'll be trying to do that, and they may skin their knee a little bit. Well, I own that, because I don't ever want to suppress the creativity and the ingenuity that comes with these young people that come to work for me in Washington, and some of the people a little longer in the tooth back in my district that do my constituent service work. They know how I feel about them, and I'm happy to brag on them, and I'm glad you brought up the results that you have enjoyed from my constituent service team. Wasn't anything I did, except that I hired those people and have pointed them in that right direction. All right, here's the poll question. Remember, we asked, do you support the President's Operation Epic Fury? 73% support, 23% do not support. So a pretty overwhelming number, I think, on the poll question. 73% in support. We have one more question? Okay, this is our last question. It's coming from Danielle, and it's online. And here's the question. How do you ensure ICE actions target serious criminal offenses rather than disrupting families or workers without violent records? Well, unfortunately, that is whatever influence I can have with the administration, and I have some, we communicate that desire. And I think I speak for most of my colleagues, and probably all of my colleagues, that we want ICE and the Customs and Border Patrol people to honor the pledge and the promise that the President made in his last election in 2024, that we were going to target the serious offenders. Now, anybody that's has any objectivity to them at all would have to understand that when you're dealing with millions of people who have infiltrated our country illegally, many of whom are not causing problems and up here to try to live, that American dream, be productive and all those kinds of things. And in some cases, these are DACA kids. These are kids that were dragged into the country by their parents at 2 or 3 years of age and have gone through our schools and now in college, and they don't have a home country. This is their home country. There's going to be anecdotal evidence of some hardships, and unfortunately, we saw a couple of people killed in Minneapolis as a result of some activity, and frankly, they didn't deserve to die, but at the same time, they also put themselves in a position of scrutiny, and I wish that wasn't the case. But I'm going to continue to, with every voice that I have, with all my energy, to encourage the President, the administration, Secretary Noem, and others to target the people who are most deserving of being escorted out of this country. And then I'll tell you this, on top of all that, this country owes itself a comprehensive review of the immigration policies that have created the situation that we're in right now. We've at least stopped the flow across the southern border. Now let's work on internal enforcement and try to figure out a way that the bad guys can go back and some of the good guys can find a way to stay and continue contributing to our great way of life here in America. And if we can get to that, I think we can say we've been successful against a very difficult issue. All right, we are out of time, I think, almost. Do we have time for one more call? Let's take one more call. It's only, 4 minutes till 9. I said I'd be here an hour. All right, here it is. Doug and Rogers, are you there?
Hello, Steve. Yes, sir.
Hey, man.
First of all, our family wanted to give you our condolences for your recent loss, and our thoughts have been with you as you and your family have endured that. Wanted to share that, but I did have a question that I know you are deeply involved in with our defense and military spending budgets. Considering the pressures of the things that we've gone through this year, operations this summer in Iran, recently in Venezuela, now more operations in Iran again that could last for a while, where do you see those pressures impacting our defense and military spending budgets? And assuming those are going to have to increase to rebuild and continue to rebuild our military, where do you think that money will come from, and what's your confidence in getting to where that needs to be?
Well, in the State of the Union address, the President said that we need to be spending another $500 billion a year in defense spending. And of course, that excites a lot of people that are, true national defense hawks in this community. I try to be realistic about it. I mean, that rolls off the tongue pretty easy. That's a lot of money, first of all. It's almost half of the entire discretionary budget when you think about it. $500 billion would do a lot of other things when it concerns cancer research or helping our farmers or building roads and bridges and other things that we do outside of national security. I don't know that the defense, I'm sure the defense guys over at the Pentagon would tell you they could spend another $500 million a year, but I'm not real sure they could spend it well and efficiently and wisely and be accountable. But we do have some vulnerabilities right now, and I'm not going to be bashful about it. Our munitions stockpile is a problem for this country, and I'm sure adversaries in other parts of the globe, read China, elsewhere, Russia, are paying attention to the fact that we've expended a lot of munitions. What we sent to Ukraine in the war in Eastern Europe, we paid a heavy toll in terms of our magazine depth on a lot of munitions that went there. And it's not that we've depleted them, it's just that we can't replenish those stockpiles if we're just going to piecemeal a defense budget year after year. We have to give the defense industrial base the flexibility and the certainty, funding certainty, that these programs that are going to take multiple years to execute, that the funding is going to be there. And unfortunately, the budget process of the modern Congress is not conducive to giving anybody any certainty. I mean, my goodness, we shut the government down for 43 days. We've got to get back to regular order, and I do favor an increase in defense spending that is equal to the threat that we face around the globe. And as a percentage of GDP, we're not spending near as much money on defense as we once did. And I'm a big believer in Reagan's Peace Through Strength initiative, and I think the only way that you can truly avoid conflict is if nobody wants to mess with you. And the way nobody wants to mess with you is accomplished is by having the weapons platforms, the magazine depth on munitions, and the wherewithal to be able to project power whenever and wherever we need to in order to accomplish the objectives in our national security strategy. And that means we're going to have to spend a little more money to do that, and it does mean that we're going to have to bring some certainty to the table for the defense industrial base, whose purpose it is to help us achieve the level of inventory that is going to take for us to prosecute not only the invasion of Iran, but also a potential conflict in the South China Sea, which would make the invasion in Iran probably pale in comparison. So we have a lot of work to do on that front. And yes, I'm a defense appropriator, and I'm going to continue my role there. Maybe one day I'll be chairman of that subcommittee. I hope to, anyway. And we'll have an opportunity to engage further on those issues. And let's also remind ourselves that these F-35s flying in and out of Fort Smith that are being bought up by our allies and partners, those are expensive items. Those are $80 to $100 million a piece. The F-15s that we just saw go into the ocean in Operation Epic Fury, we lost 3 of them. Those are probably $40 or $50 million, $35, $40 million a piece. So these platforms are expensive, and it does require Congress to have a budget process that is conducive to allowing us to prosecute our mission of providing for the common defense without any compromises. All right, so we're done. That's it. Let me close by saying this. I invite your views. We thank you so much for taking the time to join our call this evening. If I didn't get to you tonight, please stay on the call and leave a message. My office will listen to those messages, and we'll get back to you to answer any questions you have. We will continue to host town halls periodically, so watch our social media and sign up for our e-newsletter or our website or on our website to stay up to date. And while passing legislation is critically important, my main focus is on serving you as a constituent. Give us the opportunity to serve your needs when needed. You can reach our district office in Rogers at 479-464-0446 or the D.C. office here, 202-225-4301. You can also send me an email through my website. Remember, we're here to help you. Finally, let me say this. We're about to enter the spring. Spring break is coming up. There are going to be a lot of people traveling from my district up to Washington, D.C. Call my office. Let my staff help set you up on a Capitol tour or a White House tour or help guide and direct. And, we kind of want to be your concierge up here when you're coming to Washington, D.C. So please let our office know when you're making those trips. And I want to say personally that if you are if you're a parent of a young child, say 5, 6, 7, 8 years of age, one of the greatest joys I have as a congressman is when I have those constituents in town with their kids, and during a vote series, I get to take them down on the floor and actually let them take my voting card and vote for me. That is always something that is very special, and we can't do it for everybody, but we certainly want to do it for you if convenient. Finally, let me say this. We lost a legend today. Lou Holtz passed away. He was a former Razorback football coach. I've known Lou Holtz for many years. I've been with Lou Holtz in many a circumstance, and I want to tell you one of my favorite Lou Holtz stories. Steve Scalise, the majority leader, and I were over at the Capitol Grill one night. This was a couple of years ago, and Lou was in there having dinner. And I told Scalise, I said, we got to go over there and talk to Lou. So we did. Went over there and had a nice visit with Lou, and then I said, hey man, would you pose for a picture with us? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So he stands up, and he says, where do you want me to stand? I said, here, why don't you stand between us? So he got between us, and here's what he said. Lou was a funny guy. Lou says, well, I guess if Jesus can hang between two thieves, I can stand between you two guys. And then we snapped our picture. He was one of a kind. And today he passed away at age 89. What a remarkable life he led. what a great inspiration he was to a lot of people, and we're going to miss our friend Lou Holtz. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. You guys take care. We look forward to seeing you down the road. In the meantime, enjoy your night, and thanks for joining us on this telephone town hall meeting. Good night, everybody.